What's going on, guys? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I got a big announcement coming up, scheduled or possibly scheduled for UFC 311 in January 2025. Islam Makhachev is going to return to take on most likely Armen Tsarukyan, and that is going to be an amazing fight being had. I know Dana White has alluded to this fight multiple different times in the past, considering that Armen Tsarukyan is the clear-cut #1 contender after taking out Charles Oliveira at UFC 300. He had a suspension after UFC 300 for punching a fan, and Islam Makhachev then broke his hand I think in UFC 302 or sometime close after that. So they had to ultimately postpone this fight. And I do think that it is going to happen at UFC 311 in Los Angeles, California, possibly 100. I'm not 100% sure, but Khabib Nurmagomedov, Islam Makhachev's coach and great friend, came out and said Islam Makhachev is looking to come back early next year, most likely in January, and that is in Los Angeles. If you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That's the best way to help out the channel grow. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications just so you guys are always notified when UFC content releases. But without further ado, let's break down Islam Makhachev versus Armen Tsarukyan 2 coming to you in January of 2025. So we got Islam Makhachev versus Armen Tsarukyan coming to you at UFC 311, most likely. If I had to say, Khabib Nurmagomedov has come out and said that Islam Makhachev is eager to get back in there and fight. He wanted to headline possibly UFC 309 at Madison Square Garden against Tsarukyan, but he ultimately broke his hand or had some hand complications to where he wasn't able to do that. Considering that Islam Makhachev is one of the most entertaining fighters in the UFC currently, considering that he has so many different ways to win fights. He's an amazing striker, he's an amazing grappler, and Armen, on the other hand, too, is another amazing fighter. Armen Tsarukyan gets a lot of criticism for his game, but he was able to take down Charles Oliveira. He was able to admit some ground and pound. He was able to have great submission defense in that fight. He really showed that he is on the level of the Charles Oliveira's and the Islam Makhachevs, and he might not be on that level of Islam, but going in there and beating Charles Oliveira in a very razor-close fight is something that is absolutely insane, considering the only person that's been able to beat Charles is Islam, who I consensusly think is the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world. Truly, Islam Makhachev has every little skill set that he needs to go in there and win that fight, and I do think that Islam would do that against Armen Tsarukyan. I do think that this fight would be incredibly competitive, considering that these two fought before, so they could have film off one another, and they would see most recent fights fighting similar opponents like Charles Oliveira, and obviously themselves, which was a fight that was a fight night main event back in the day, which was a great fight in a very close 5-round war that Islam Makhachev won. But I do think that this is probably the hardest fight in the UFC lightweight division for someone like Islam Makhachev, considering that he is so well-rounded. The only type of fighter that's going to go in there and be able to beat Islam is someone who has a great grappling base because of how good Islam is in that category. Islam's fight with Dustin Poirier was some of the greatest artwork I've ever seen in the octagon, considering that he was able to move positions, he was able to do so many different things while being able to go in there and just absolutely put it on Islam, really to be able to go in there and do what he needs to. I truly think that genuinely Islam Makhachev is one of the fighters in the UFC who is like the greatest of all time, considering in that lightweight division, it's him and Khabib Nurmagomedov. I know Charles Oliveira is great, but Islam is greater than him. Islam Makhachev, yes, he defended the belt against Volkanovski twice, but that second Volk win was super impressive. Even that first Volk win going to Australia and winning the belt was impressive to me. And there were so many different other fights that Islam has had, like that Dustin Poirier fight. He dismantled Poirier and got the Darce in the 5th round. Islam Makhachev is a problem, but there is a genuine possibility that someone like Armen Tsarukyan could win this belt at UFC 311 if it happened, because of how composed he is, of how good of a striker he is too. He is such a good fighter, and I cannot say that enough. So really, what do I think could be happening at this, or what would be the strategy of each individual? Because I think Islam Makhachev could just go in there and throw up his game, considering that he's such a good, well-rounded fighter. He has everything that he really needs to be able to do. He's got that striking prowess, he's got that grappling, just a game in him, and he's truly got every single thing that he can do. He's got an amazing submission game in his back, considering that he hit a Kimura on Dan Hooker, he hit a Darce choke on Dustin Poirier, he hit an arm triangle on Charles Oliveira. He's got some amazing submission skills that he's super quick with jumping on, and Armen does have a great submission defense, so that is something that's going to be a very fun game to watch, considering that these two individuals are some of the highest level grappling, jiu-jitsu, and wrestling sambo styles inside the UFC currently, that I truly think that it is going to be a very fun fight. But how does Armen go in here and win this fight? Because this is a fight that not a lot of individuals think that he's going to win. Armen Tsarukyan is going to have to mix up the game to the best of his ability, considering that he is a great grappler, and we have talked about that time and time again, because Armen has submitted has some great ground and pound, great ground control. He was able to controlled Charles Oliveira. Now, his submission defense, which is something that I mentioned a couple times in this video, is Armen's submission defense is absolutely insane, considering that he got out of the guillotine from Charles Oliveira and he got out of the Darce choke against Charles Oliveira. 2 chokes that were really in tight, considering that Armen was able to not panic. He was able to stay confident and composed and do what he needed to do to ultimately win those exchanges, to ultimately win the fight. And he really did look incredible in that fight, considering of the opponent that he was going up against, considering that it was such a hard-fought war between these 2 individuals. But who do I think would win against Islam and Armen? And I just got to go with Islam just because of how well-rounded he is. There's not going to be a situation when I'm going to go in there and bet against Islam Makhachev, considering that he is the pound-for-pound best fighter on the planet. He's probably got the best all-around skills inside the organization right now, and truly, he is one of those fighters who has the ability to go in and be the greatest lightweight of all time. He has the striking prowess. He's got the wrestling game. He's just got the mental IQ too, to mix everything up and make it a big symphony in there inside the octagon. And that is something that is truly amazing to watch. Islam is a world-renowned fighter, and he's one of my favorite fighters in the organization, considering that he has all of those abilities and he knows how to tie them together perfectly. And it's like he's making an art piece every single time he steps in the octagon. And I know Armen Tsarukyan is a great fighter, and I could see Armen winning this fight because I do think he is incredibly underrated, but I do think that Islam Makhachev is going to be a little too much for Armen Tsarukyan, considering everything at hand. I do think that Islam is so good. I do think that Armen is so good. I think that this is going to be a very hard-fought fight between the 2 individuals, but I cannot bet against the pound-for-pound #1 fighter inside the world, considering that he's fighting in his own weight class. He's in his prime. He beat Dustin Poirier in the last one in a very dominant fashion. There's just so many things that bring with me picking Islam Makhachev over Armen Tsarukyan that I just don't think I could go back on. And I do think that this would be by finish. I do think that Armen Tsarukyan is a great fighter, but I do think there is some gaps in his game. I would say that it's either going to be by TKO or it's going to be him getting knocked down and Islam Makhachev going for a submission kind of soon on that, because Islam is so good. Like I said, that ankle pick to Darce choke combination on Dustin Poirier was amazing, and I don't think that Armen Tsarukyan is going to have the knowledge and kind of have everything in there fighting someone like Islam to be able to defend over and over and over again, considering that Islam is not only one of the best grapplers inside the organization, in my opinion the best grappler, but he's also a top 5 striker in the organization, in my opinion, just because he's able to use that grappling threat to help him in the stand-up. He's able to use that stand-up to help him in the grappling department. Everything that Islam Makhachev does is absolutely amazing, and that is why I do believe he will win at UFC 311 or when he fights Armen Tsarukyan. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think down below in the comment section about this Islam Makhachev returning to UFC 311, possibly, and I believe it's in Los Angeles, California, against, I'm assuming, the opponent being Armen Tsarukyan. Islam Makhachev is such a good fighter, and like I said, I think Armen would be one of his toughest challenges inside the lightweight division, but the only way I see Islam losing inside the organization is if he goes up and challenges someone at welterweight, or if he goes up and challenges someone at middleweight. I know Kevin Holland was talking about Islam Makhachev being in the welterweight division, and he said he would be champ immediately, and I 100% agree with that statement, considering of how well-rounded Islam is, of how big Islam is for lightweight, and of how truly just absolutely insane of a fighter he is. As an individual, just menace out there inside the UFC octagon. There really is a fighter inside the organization who is as well-rounded in the striking department while having the best grappling game going alongside it. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think down below in the comment section about the video, and please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoy the YouTube content, and thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.